The end of year top 10s continue. We're gonna do top 10 worst non-horror movies of 2023 with a little caveat at the beginning. So anyway, let's do this. What's up, guys? Welcome to the next in a long line of top 10s. I'm having a blast doing these. It's a lot of work editing them and putting them together because I want to give you the best product I can. But I thank you so much for watching. I always get good views at the end of the year because of these end of year lists. It seems like you guys like them. I like doing them. We're gonna get into the countdown, but I'm gonna give you, like in my last worst list, I'll give you a little indicator to tell you if I like the movie or if it's a stinker, because these worst lists give me an opportunity to give you a few other movies that I actually liked, but I didn't have room for on the previous list. And I definitely wanted to do that because this first movie I'm going to talk about, it's one that I actually just watched last night. After I watched it, I was like, damn, I wish I would have put this on the list. You guys on X told me about it. So anyway, let's jump into it with the first honorable mention. It's going to be Bottoms. Thank God for X, because you guys clued me in on this movie, and I have been complaining about the lack of really fun, raunchy comedies. You know, like what we had back in the 80s with Porky's, and then the 90s with American Pie, and then in the 2000s with the Apatow. They always come and go. And I think Bottoms is perfect for this new generation. And it's really about these two high school girls, just like a lot of these other raunchy comedies where the subject is trying to pretty much get laid. That's what these girls are trying to do. You constantly hear things being shoved down our throats these days, no pun intended. This movie does it right, okay? I don't care who the people are in your movie, just don't make it feel not even like a side plot, but really just trying to push some sort of agenda or whatever. This is how you do it. This movie doesn't do that. The main focus is characters trying to fit in and trying to really hook up with other characters. And what makes this movie so great is the writing is so witty and fun. And not just the writing, but the performances by the two young actresses. Their delivery, their comedic timing is so on point, and you are just laughing your ass off. Great cast around them. The plot of this is infectious too, because they decide we'll make a fight club. So that way we can get all these girls to come in. That'll kind of be our cover for what we're really trying to do. And they literally state that in the raunchiest way in the movie, which was hilarious. But also there's this great final act on the football field that I could not get enough of. I was just really laughing my ass off with this movie. It's so funny that you'll find reaction videos, like audience reaction videos on YouTube of people that saw this in the theater. So that's when you know a movie's really funny. Holy crap, I got 4 honorable mentions. I didn't even realize that. So the next one is gonna be Saltburn. This is another one that I really, really liked, almost loved. Really, this is sort of an obsession movie, but it does keep you guessing, and it might not go the direction you think it's going to go. Barry Keoghan is amazing in this, proving himself to be one of the finest young actors working today. But he's infatuated with this guy in this college who happens to be mega rich. And the guy invites Barry Keoghan's character, I think his name is Oliver, to his estate where he lives. And then that's where all the crazy shenanigans start going on. You got one of those really weird families in this. We always love weird families in movies. Definitely pushes the envelope. Director Emerald Fennell, loved her last movie, Promising Young Woman, and this is a great follow-up to that. But expect some shock value in this movie. I can't stress that enough. Next honorable mention is No Hard Feelings, another one that I really liked. Jennifer Lawrence is in this. This is another, it does have some raunchy moments. It's a really funny rated R comedy, and it also has an infectious plot where you got this family with this nerdy kid, and they just want him to get out of the house and get a date. And so they hire Jennifer Lawrence, who happens to be like 30 in this, to date him. They almost want her to have sex with him, pretty much. But she feels so comfortable in this role. A lot of funny moments throughout. You know, every couple months I like to have a good comedy, and this one definitely whetted that appetite for me. And you definitely have some heart here too. There's a nice musical number in the middle of the movie that I really loved. So yeah, No Hard Feelings, highly recommended. Okay, last honorable mention is Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle was the latest DC movie. I think it was considered DCEU. Funny enough, this weekend is the Aquaman the last DCEU movie. I haven't seen it yet. I might go see it over the weekend. I'm not sure. We'll see. That should tell you something. I'm not like dying to see the latest Aquaman. And you know what? I'm a DC guy. I actually love Zack Snyder's trilogy. Like those are some of my favorite superhero movies. But I think the DCEU I think it couldn't decide on the path that it wanted to take. It didn't really stay the course. It wanted to copy Marvel too much. And Blue Beetle is fun. At the end of the day, it's just a really fun, small-scale superhero movie. It's an origin story, which we've seen those a million times, and none of the actions in this movie are going to surprise you, but you do have an infectious cast, some really funny moments throughout, and you know what? I went in with the lowest expectations, and I had a blast with Blue Beetle, and I think it should have performed better than it did. Okay, jumping into the top 10. Next one, I'm gonna go with the Iron Claw. We're still in the like category, but once we get into the top 8, that's when we jump into the stinkers, okay? But the Iron Claw, it's a very good biopic, and the true story, I think, is more interesting than the movie itself, and tragic. Like, you don't even really have to watch this movie. You could just watch a documentary on the Von Erich family, and that's all you really need. You do have some good performances in here by Zac Efron and company. Honestly, this movie felt very repetitive throughout, and it doesn't really have, you know, the hills and valleys as far as emotion goes, the emotional hills and valleys. You know how when you're watching one of these movies, you want to laugh, then you want to maybe get sad a little bit, sort of like Rocky, stuff like that. But this movie, pretty much as soon as the first tragedy happens, it stays that way throughout the rest of the movie, and you end up getting the idea. And I'm just speaking on the movie itself, not the actual Von Erich family. What they went through must have been the hardest thing imaginable, and nothing but respect for them. I don't think this is a bad movie, but it's not one that I'll ever watch again. It's definitely not my favorite like biopic. And I think it's just because of the nature of the story and how many casualties there are, it's hard to make, I guess, a really compelling movie out of it. I think this more serves a documentary format than it does a movie. But I will say it ended on sort of a positive note, which is really nice. Okay, number 9, and this is the last one in the like category, and this is going to surprise you given my original review for this movie. So number 9 is going to be Barbie. And I put out a review for this, sort of a half-baked review, because I did it during a live stream just to get my thoughts out there on the movie. And I was hard on it. And that was how I felt at the time. And maybe when I saw the movie, I was kind of in a bad mood. I don't know. I felt like it was piling on men, if I'm being completely honest. After watching it the second time at home on Max, I watched it last week, I ended up having a really good time with it. I didn't mind it so much, and I kind of understood where it was coming from a female point of view. And I think Greta Gerwig, she wasn't making this movie to offend anybody. She wanted to make it fun for fans of Barbie, but I think she was just trying to give a little bit of insight on what it's like to be a woman even today. But still, there's a lot of fun to be had in Barbie. And I'm the first to correct myself if I feel like my mind might have changed. Not to say that I was wrong the first time, because movies are emotional, and that's how I was feeling when I reviewed the movie. So it's not wrong, it's just a feeling. But this last time when I watched it, I kind of woke up and I actually enjoyed it a lot more. Enough to get it out of the not like list, I guess. Okay, it's official. Now we're jumping into the stinkers, the ones I didn't like. Number 8 is Leave the World Behind. This is a brand new movie on Netflix with big stars, Julia Roberts, Ethan Hawke, who I'm a big fan of both those actors. Kevin Bacon's in here. But this is one of those like end of world type movies. And there's been a lot of Airbnb thrillers lately as well. The Rental is one I highly recommend, although a lot of you didn't like that movie. I loved it. But this is just another one of those, like Barbarian, quote unquote owner of the property shows up after the vacationers have moved in. And there's like a power outage, and there's trust issues going on there. And Julia Roberts plays the character that has the most difficult time. She's very skeptical about everything. Whereas Ethan Hawke, not so much, which kind of fits your male and female tropes. Not just tropes, but like real life. I think women are a little bit more on guard than men are. But this was one of those movies that I was expecting it to really ramp up and get much more intense. And maybe for some of you it did, but to me it just didn't get there like I wanted it to. And you know, I love this specific subgenre of thrillers, you know, end of the world type thrillers, but this one, it just kind of fizzled out for me. It didn't really go anywhere. And I know there are fans of this movie. My friend Jason from Sinister Cinema Reviews, I saw his review and he actually liked this movie quite a bit. But this is one of those movies, to its credit, that you can definitely have like a conversation about after. But just at face value, watching the movie, I was kind of bored, if I'm being honest. And I've said this before, don't bore me, don't you do that. Number 7, and this is where I'm gonna lose all of you, Killers of the Flower Moon. I am shocked that I am putting this on my worst of list. And a lot of you might not take me seriously after saying this, but all I can do is be honest, okay guys? And I am a Scorsese nut. He is easily in my top 5, maybe top 3 favorite directors. I love just about everything he's done. He is an auteur. He is one of the finest directors we have. And I say sometimes the greatest directors, they don't always hit a home run. John Carpenter is a great example. And by the way, I can't blame the runtime. I loved The Irishman, which is I think even longer than this movie. But to me, I guess similar to The Iron Claw, this just felt like it stayed in a certain gear pretty much most of the movie. It didn't feel like it was escalating like I wanted it to. It was a little bit repetitive with what was going on. Leonardo DiCaprio has really turned in some amazing performances through the years. To me, he just felt kind of one note. I'm not gonna say I didn't like his character, and I love when an actor tackles different types of characters, and I think his acting's fine. In the end, I guess it's just not a memorable character for me, because he's played so many other really great characters, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You do have those Scorsese playbook shots that you see here and there, with the camera pulling back while during a montage while things are going on. All that stuff's in here. It's just not my favorite Scorsese movie. I don't think it's horrible, but I just, again, found myself really bored. Number 6 is Chevalier. This is one of those that the story is interesting, and it's about the first black violinist. And I can't remember the time period that it's set in. I want to say like 1700s, something like that. You got Samara Weaving in here. Kevin Harrison Jr. plays the lead. I think he does a commendable job in the role. I think my problem with this movie was that given the subject matter, which is definitely racism, especially back then, I just didn't think this really conquered any new ground as far as the subject matter goes. I thought the story itself was kind of formulaic. I was kind of making comparisons with Candyman, because Candyman was this character who was a slave, and he had an affair with this white woman, and he was tortured and killed because of it. And I love Candyman. That is one of the best freaking horror movies out there. This, to me, was similar to that, just kind of a watered down type version. And I didn't think it really brought anything new to the table in terms of the genre. I mean, there's been so many movies throughout the years about struggle and overcoming insurmountable odds, and it doesn't matter the race. And so to me, this just didn't really stand out from the pack. Okay, number 5, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Boy, did they flex way too early on this movie by releasing the review embargo. I think they released it like a month in advance, and it really cost them, and they fell on their face. And I can see why. This is not a good movie. It's definitely not a good Indiana Jones movie either. I don't even like the way this movie looks, you know? It doesn't have that Steven Spielberg look like the last 4 Indiana Jones movies. And James Mangold is a great director. Love his work. Check out Copland, Logan. I honestly feel like Indiana Jones was kind of steamrolled in this movie. And you know, I don't mind putting the microscope over an iconic character's twilight years. I mean, we've done it with the Rambo franchise, and I think it was somewhat effective. Hell, I even liked Han Solo in Force Awakens, if I'm being honest. This just did not feel like Indiana Jones. And I know a lot of people don't like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but at least that felt like Indiana Jones. That was fun. I think Phoebe Waller-Bridge kind of took over the lead, like they were setting her up for a spinoff in this. And I don't even mind the idea of the Dial of Destiny. I thought that was an interesting plot angle to focus on. And they tried to showcase a young Indiana Jones for part of this movie, but it felt off. It felt really weird. And hearing older Harrison Ford's voice with the young Indiana Jones, it just didn't feel right. And it's a shame. This is the last Indiana Jones movie. I hope Harrison Ford's proud of it. I'm not. Number 4, Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Whew, this was horrible. This was really, really bad. You know, pretty much just every bad superhero blockbuster trope. Doesn't really break any new ground. The villains are atrocious in this movie, and it's not because they're women. But to be fair, I've just never been a fan of Shazam. I didn't really like the first one either. And I like the idea that they're going for with Shazam. It's kind of cool that a kid turns into a superhero, and how will he act? I mean, I think that's why we love Spider-Man so much. But maybe because he hasn't really earned that power, he hasn't trained for that power, maybe that's why you don't get the payoff that you want. I don't know. And I know Zachary Levi was really promoting this movie hard, trying to get some kind of traction off of it, but it just wasn't working. And honestly, even if this movie was great, I think DC shot themselves in the foot by still having, I think, 4 movies in the can that still needed to be released by the time they regrouped and really rebooted this whole thing with the DCU. That automatically set them up for failure with these remaining movies, so it's a shame. Okay, top 3. Number 3, Ant-Man Quantumania. And I actually found some charm after going back and rewatching Ant-Man 1 and Ant-Man 2. Very early on in this movie, there's a moment where Bill Murray shows up and he's talking to Michael Douglas about how he slept with his wife. And he kept foot stomping the joke. And I was like, this is the comedy that they're going for? This is kind of weird. And I think the MCU, they have like a safe zone as far as their comedy goes, and they're really effective at it. But Ant-Man kind of jumped the shark, so to speak. They really went overboard with the comedy, and a lot of it just didn't land. You can have as much comedy as you want, and if it's good, then you can get away with it. But if it's just poor, lazy writing, then it's just not gonna work at all. But judging by the trailers, this looked like it could be a really fun and epic Ant-Man movie. Now we're taking Ant-Man out of the smaller scale and making it bigger and more epic in stature. But maybe that was a mistake in the first place. Maybe they should have kept it small scale. That's where Ant-Man works better. And a word on Jonathan Majors, I actually liked him in this. I thought he was probably the best part of this movie. He was a very effective villain. I don't think the story panned out as satisfying as I wanted it to with where they took him. But yeah, that's kind of all for naught now, given the current situation with him. Okay, number 2 is The Marvels. And this is one of those situations where you could tell that they were dreading putting this movie out because they were already getting so much bad buzz on this. But to be fair to the movie, you know, the pandemic was in full swing when they were making this movie. That was an excuse for them to use to constantly push this movie back because it got pushed back so many times. So the inevitable, much like Aquaman right now, was going to happen. This movie was going to fail miserably. It seems like rarely does that happen where the negative hype train is so big and then a movie goes the opposite direction and ends up being great. The only time I could think of that that's happened is Titanic. Because before Titanic came out, everybody was expecting it to fail because the budget kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they kept pushing it back, and it ended up being the highest grossing movie of all time for a while. This wasn't going to happen with The Marvels, though. This movie just feels very poorly written, superficial. I think even the dynamic between the 3 leads, I know a lot of people have been stating that their chemistry was really good. I disagree. I felt like the chemistry just wasn't there. Plus, they're introducing characters that a lot of the audience doesn't even know because they didn't really watch the TV series. And I found a lot of the jokes annoying, even with Miss Marvel. And I know a lot of you guys liked Miss Marvel. I really just kind of hated her in this. To give a little bit of positivity to this movie, I would say Brie Larson was probably my favorite part of the movie. And number one, and most of you probably won't even guess it, but it's Expendables 4. I'm not a massive Expendables fan anyway, and Stallone is, you know, he's my childhood idol. He's one of my all-time favorite actors. Rocky, Rambo, love all that stuff. I never really fully connected with Expendables in the first place. Having said that, the first 3 movies look like freaking Terminator 2 compared to Expendables 4. It's a massive, colossal failure on all fronts. I can't believe the writing in this movie. There's really no preparation for the parts. I'm talking about like Megan Fox, and they're setting her up to be this team lead. They fire the current team lead, and I'm trying to avoid spoilers, and they put Megan Fox in the part, and as soon as they go out on the first mission, she's taken down immediately. And not just taken down, but like in embarrassing fashion. Megan Fox felt so out of place in this role. She didn't really know what to do to prepare for this part, I'm guessing, because it's just laughable. But also just filmmaking wise, you could tell that a lot of this was on a green screen. You could tell that Stallone did not give 2 shits about this movie. What you would call the A-list big guns that we've seen in the previous Expendables movie aren't even here. Dolph Lundgren feels just like out of place in the movie. Just so many problems. It is really, really bad. And I passed on a Netflix screening because they were showing this for a press screening. I had my choice, and I was like, oh shit, let me go check out Expendables 4, expecting to have a good time. And I walked out laughing my ass off for the wrong reasons. So yeah, really, really bad. So yeah, that's it. There's your top 10, really top 8 worst of the year list, but I'm glad I gave you some recommendations. I always like to give you some recommendations at the beginning of the movie. And somebody in the comments did state, why are you doing this? Why are you shitting on movies? That's not really professional to do that. Look, I admire the craft of filmmaking, and to make even a bad movie is a massive, gargantuan feat that most of us will never even do. Critique is critique, and if a movie's bad, I'm gonna call it bad. Because directors need to hear this shit, right? They don't wanna be freaking patted on the back and sugar-coated if it's fake. I think this forces directors to try harder, right? Just like I need to try harder on my criticism, right? We all need to try harder. So there you go. So anyway, guys, let me know your least favorites down in the comments. Looking forward to hearing them. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do FIFA Fridays. Follow my Drumdums on my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Drumdum out.